Hello, everyone, and welcome to I'll Bring the Biscuits, the podcast that is brought to you by Prepare for Care. Here we have the difficult conversations about what's going on in care, what's going on in and around the world of care, and we have it over some biscuits. So I'm really, really happy today to be joined by Dr. Ella Moonan-Howard of the Alzheimer Society. But the Alzheimer's Society's innovation team, they are the people who are on the cutting edge of new technology in and around care. Ella, hello.
Hi.
How are you getting on today?
Good. Although can I bring Stollen rather than biscuits?
Stollen.
I'm in Christmas vibes.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
got my first Christmas Stollen yesterday. And I think it's the best baked good. Marzipan,
I'm gonna say
rich in
yes, but
rum.
now it means I have to release this soon because you've just instantly dated it.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Sorry. Well, we still have a while for Christmas. I'm enthusiastic about it. But yeah, Stollen is my vibe at the moment.
Fair. If we're going to be truly honest, I've already had 2 Yule logs this year. It started 2 weeks ago. I saw it in Asda's and I went, I'm having a Yule log.
I'm all there. I'm all for that.
So in that case, the Stollen is in. If you need to have a difficult conversation around the world of care, do it over a Christmas Stollen any time of the year.
Yeah, basically.
Well, let's jump into then, Ella. The Alzheimer's Society Innovation Team. How did you end up sat with the innovation team?
You do want me to start at the beginning?
Right at the beginning.
Right at the beginning. So I did an undergrad in sociology at college. I was interested in people and I was interested in identity, what makes us who we are, how we come to identify with certain labels rather than others, what that means for race, gender, equality, all sorts of different things. And I remember my supervisor at the time basically said, why don't you go speak to somebody that, well, no, I think I'd said on a whim, I'd said, oh, well, I don't know how I'm going to find anybody to talk to about identity. And I said, oh, well, my grandma said that I can interview her, but what am I going to do that for? And my supervisor was like, no, go interview grandma. And I sort of thought at the time, oh, well, it would be an easy way for me to find some people to speak to. But I went and I spent 10 days, stayed at my grandma's house, and I interviewed her and all of her friends in her local village. And it honestly was completely transformative as an experience, because I realized as a 20-something-year-old, I'd spent all this time obsessing about identity and what makes us who we are, but hadn't thought about age at all, really.
Okay.
And was sort of, I suppose, trying to work out who I was, but hadn't thought about the perspectives of people at the other side of the life course. And I came away from that week was asking them, what it means to grow old, what aging means to people in their 70s and 80s. And I came away with a whole new perspective on life, to be honest, about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And I just thought, why is that not a normal thing? Why have I had to be sort of forced through this artificial research experience into having some of the most meaningful conversations with my loved one that I'd ever had, and finding out stuff about my grandmother I would have never previously known, having a whole different relationship with her friends. They weren't just other people she mentioned in passing. They were people who I had then built relationships with. And it sort of sparked a bit of an obsession, to be honest, about aging, about health-related inequalities, about how marginalized and underappreciated and under-recognized older adults are in modern society, sort of how we've come to this point in our culture that it feels like that. I went on and did a master's and a PhD exploring that topic, looking at friendship and loneliness and social isolation, how different generations had come to maybe not interact as as frequently or as meaningfully as they had in the past. And then after sort of intellectualizing it for a while and thinking a lot about marginalization and age-based discrimination and about sort of amplifying underheard voices, I then felt like there needed to be more action. And that was the point that I started working for an organization called Zinc, who have big social impact missions, and they bring together all sorts of different people around those missions in order to build new ventures. At that point, I didn't really know anything about innovation or product design, but I knew that I wanted to do more than just talk about some of these issues, and I wanted to see some of it in practice and help that. So I first started working at Zinc, translating some of the academic research that I'd been reading into companies that were working on an age, sort of later life mission. And then did some other work with them, set up a PhD placement program, helping other PhD students sort of step into ventures. And there was all sorts of different topics around that, right? So, people building for menopause. And I find it interesting with people, we talk about intersectionality quite a lot, right? But there's lots of threads, I suppose, of social impact problems that you can add an age-based lens to, that
Yeah.
it just almost amplifies the marginalization, right? So women's health is marginalized, like there's not very good data on it, like there's not good data on women's hormones. You then add an age-based layer on it and you get a whole load of new problems around menopause, for example, which becomes sort of doubly marginalized. And you see that again, with financial literacy, and then you're thinking about pension reform, and you're thinking about access to good legal services, for example. And then all of these things get sort of amplified, doubled, quadrupled in terms of the disadvantage that people are feeling when you add sort of an age-based situation onto that. And I was doing quite a lot of work helping ventures to test, to access participants, access older adults, trying to create environments in which people would naturally build relationships, because I felt that in the same way that I had missed out on sort of meaningful interactions with my grandma and her family, and that had meant that I didn't have understanding. You sort of see that when you're building ventures or in research as well. You create these sort of forced interactions where you go and you test something with somebody, but you're not actually building
Yeah.
a relationship with them. And to be able to build a product or to be able to conduct good research, you have to be able to form a good human relationship with somebody. And dementia, I think, is one of those topics that I think everyone sort of skirted around. That building ventures is really hard, doing research is really hard, doing it in later life, that space is also doubly hard. Very few people went near dementia. And just like the mood shifts a little bit when you talk about dementia, like people feel a bit
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And that sort of just instinctively piqued my curiosity. And when I found out about the Alzheimer Society Innovation Team, it felt like a sort of perfect fit for me, I suppose, because co-creation and amplifying the voices of people living with dementia is at the heart of everything they do. And I think being a third sector organization in the space gives them a really unique platform and power to be able to do that, because they are accountable to people living with dementia and their families, and primarily, and pretty much exclusively, because those are the people that leave very generous wills and go out and fundraise and do all the fantastic stuff that keeps the work going. So I thought it was fantastic that they were amplifying those voices. Fantastic that they were like tackling dementia, but doing it like being really brave and bold and not awkward about it. Just saying, dementia is the world's biggest, or the UK's biggest killer, devastating people's lives. It's a travesty to ignore it and to not do everything we possibly can to try and make lives lives better. So, yeah.
I don't think we've specifically mentioned what the Alzheimer's Society Innovation Team is, but I think from the passion that you just spoke with, you can work it out. It's amazing to hear how your journey, you know, very much has steered you to this point now where you are in the innovation team of Alzheimer's, and you've had almost the perfect run up to the innovation team, right? That whole journey and the passion that you just spoke with, and the passion that peeling back the fourth wall, we know each other, and so the passion that I know that is there within you, you're in the right place. So I think what would be really nice to understand is, what is the Alzheimer's Society's innovation team? But then also, and I know the question I'm asking here, what is innovation within dementia?
I'll start with the first one first. That's probably a bit easier.
Yeah.
So, the innovation team at Alzheimer's Society, we sit alongside research. Well, Alzheimer's Society has sort of three big pillars to our work. We deliver frontline services up and down the country, helping people living with dementia and their families manage the condition, the disease, dementia advisors, and memory cafes, all sorts of fantastic work. We influence policy and government as well. So we do a lot of work to try to raise the voices of people living with dementia and see systems level change to help people. And then we fund research and innovation. The research is primarily, we do care research and biomedical research, but we often talk about that as hope for the future. So new disease modifying treatments that might help people live better, sort of slightly more mid to long term, although the science is moving really quickly. So I think
Yeah, there's been some pretty cool updates in the last
the
couple of
hope
weeks.
is actually probably quite near on the horizon. And we often talk about innovation being help for now, because it's about delivering products and services really, really quickly and rapidly. So when we talk about innovations, we have a really broad remit. Dementia is a chronic condition that people live with many years, which means that it impacts all sorts of aspects of their life. And we look to develop new solutions that can transform their lives from like prevention or risk reduction right through to end of life. So that covers a really broad spectrum. And we're also looking at systems level solutions as well as individual level solutions. So that means anything that can reduce one of the 14 modifiable risk factors for dementia: smoking cessation, loneliness, air pollution, exercise, all sorts of things. Anything that can help people get early, accurate diagnoses. We know that people are being diagnosed too late. They're often not getting subtype specific diagnoses, which means they can't get onto clinical trials. They can't access the therapeutics that they need. Anything that can help people live better with dementia. That is from things that improve their quality of life. So that might be entertainment type things, lots of leisure stuff, things that help with hygiene or personal care. There's lots of stuff around hydration, and also dementia often occurs in combination with other diseases. So we've supported lots of stuff, for example, in the UTI space as a parallel condition that they sort of exacerbate one another. Things that can stop people unnecessarily transitioning into hospital, if possible, to keep people at home, allow people to live well, good person-centered care when they do transition into care or into hospital, and then also for end of life as well. So we see a hugely broad range of types of solutions, which in some ways makes our lives a bit tricky, right? Because it doesn't fit neatly into some of the categories that you often see. Obviously like med tech, and that's quite biological or things that are just being sold into the NHS. And it's not just that, it's often things that are being sold directly to people with dementia and their families, or into care homes, as well as people being things being sold into our health systems. It's probably more accurately like age tech.
I think age tech is quite an appropriate term for it, because having been within the innovation ecosystem myself for a little bit now, I've been to events where there has been med tech, there's been care tech, which I think we loosely classify ourselves at. There's been physical products as well. It's not all tech, is it? There are actual tangible pieces of something that you can hold that also makes life better for someone living with dementia.
Yeah, I mean, the easy solutions are the best ones in lots of ways. Not that tech can't be easy, but you do have to make it accessible for people and make it usable and intuitive. Whereas there's some physical products which are naturally intuitive and accessible in such a way. So yeah, we're really looking at any sort of easy, different solutions, novel solutions that can solve a real need or a problem for people living with dementia, their families, and the systems at large. And we do that through a number of different programs. So we have an early stage program called Launchpad, where we try to...
We'll have to come back to Launchpad, because I think
about
there's a lot to say about that one.
We try to find the new ideas. So really, we're trying to diversify the types of innovations and solutions in the market. So that's about sourcing different talent, people who haven't sort of been applying their talent to this problem before, and take them through a 6-month program to essentially put their ideas through their paces and see if we can get an investable sort of proposition out the other side. And then we have an accelerator program, which supports a couple of companies each year with 100K investment and 12 months worth of sort of curated support, and then into a portfolio. And at that point, it's really about us trying to use our platform as an organization in order to raise awareness, I suppose. So give what we see as some of the most promising solutions in the market a platform to be able to get out there quickly and ultimately get into the hands of the people who need them, because that piece around adoption and scale can be really tricky, and often fabulous things fail just because they haven't been able to get out there quickly enough to be able to sort of get the runway that they need. So we do a lot of media stuff. We do a lot with our local service teams to embed solutions into practice. And then I should also mention we have a couple of other programs. So we have a partnership with the NHS Clinical Entrepreneur Program. And that is all about supporting entrepreneurs who are developing new solutions sort of from within the NHS. So they're clinical entrepreneurs. That's in its just coming up. Got applications for the second year of that. We have been delivering the Longitude Prize on Dementia with Challenge Works, which is a multi-million-pound global challenge prize, finding AI solutions to help people live independently. And we will have the announcement of the finalists of the Longitude Prize of Dementia in March this year. So that's quite exciting.
Well, that's really cool. But what I would love to sort of hone in on, because I have personal experience with Prepare for Care of Launchpad, and I think the key thing for me, and it's Launchpad and all of the programs that the Alzheimer Society run through the innovation team, is it's action. You've not just put a mission statement down on a piece of paper and hope that you fulfill that. As a society and as the innovation team, you really are on the front line and pushing ideas, innovations, businesses forward. And it kind of starts with Launchpad. And I've looked at the website. The applications are still open for Launchpad?
They are. Yep. They close this Friday.
Well, hopefully someone listens because they've got an idea, a germ of an idea for a business that could make life better for people living with Alzheimer's and living with dementia. Because, you can correct me here, Ella, it's a germ of an idea is all you need for Launchpad, right?
Yeah, that's right. That being said, if you're further along, I think there's lots to be gained from the program. A little bit further along, what I usually say is, if you're not prepared to sort of rethink your idea or the way that it might look, you're probably not well suited for the program, because a big part of the program is co-creation, where we connect the founders with essentially their end users and also a wider network of stakeholders around them. So if you're creating a solution for an informal carer, for example, we will want you to also speak to people living with dementia and also maybe paid carers or other people in the ecosystem. We want people, or we believe that good innovation happens when people start listen, right? And they learn from those users. And I think that should continue to happen throughout
Throughout the life cycle.
throughout build, right? But I do understand that, when you start creating a product at a certain point, you might take slightly less feedback on and cement things a little bit more. Essentially, a big part of Launchpad is taking an idea and seeing if the idea is actually good, by asking the people who are going to use this thing, right? Do you like it? Do you want it? How should it be formed? What should it look like? So we take those early ideas so we can put them through their paces in order to make sure the right ideas are being built before people invest time, money, and energy into building the wrong things. Because we often see things further down the line that they haven't done the right user testing from the beginning and people don't want them. And then they have wasted loads of time and energy and resources and they have to go back to the beginning. So it's really about getting the voices of people with lived experience and the people who are going to be using these products into the products at the earliest possible opportunities. I think there's people that there's companies that can benefit from that, but really that co-creation piece, you have to go in with a mindset and a culture that you're going to listen and you want to change or learn, about how you do that.
Yeah, I think my advice to anybody going into Launchpad is be ready to embrace co-production and be ready to listen. I think when we joined the Launchpad cohort that I was part of, I don't think we'd ever really done any co-production. It was all, the Prepare for Care platform was based off lived experience, but it was our lived experience, my family's lived experience. And well, we're just one story in, how dementia is now affecting, is it 1 in 2 people in the UK? And so there's a lot more stories to be told. And when we got involved with Launchpad, it became really important for us to embrace co-production, but not just embrace it, embed it within our roadmap, within our production cycle, within every part of the business. And that was all learned through the curriculum on Launchpad, because we were making the wrong thing, I think, to start with.
Yeah, I mean, we do quite a lot of skills stuff. So we've got masterclasses about how to do co-creation. We've got lots of resources. So lots of it is about giving people the skills and the confidence to allow them to do more co-creation and co-production with people living with dementia after the program as well. I also think that lots of the lived experience panels that we work with regularly are they're a certain type of person living with dementia, right? They're people who have volunteered years and years of their time to co-create often. So they are experts often in innovation, product, all sorts of things from their professional lives. Then they're also experts in how to communicate insights well, so they're very honest. They'll tell you things that other people might not, because they might, you know, people often aren't honest when you ask them for feedback, and they know what's out there. Lots of these people judge the applications for our programs on multiple years, so they have a real expert insight in sort of what's good, what's next, what's not good. So I think it provides like a really good foundation for people to do more user testing, and as they go on and build, because you get the skills, you get the confidence, but you also get access to this really unique user group who are like expert lived experience advisors.
Oh, definitely, and again, I'm kind of talking to future applicants and maybe future people who are on Launchpad or even the accelerator. It's part of the power of the Alzheimer's Society as well, isn't it? It's such a recognizable brand. It's such a powerful cause as well. And, I think it's probably one of the most recognizable charities in the country, that you only attract the best advisors as well. There's some weight behind that. So some of the insights that you get as a business on there are invaluable. And if you had to get that in the commercial world, you'd be paying a lot of money for that resource. But then also it's all done for the right reason. Well, I think, and you've probably done the research behind it, it's impactful, right? The results of Launchpad are positive for the businesses that take part and the startups that take part.
Yeah, so of the cohort, we had our first cohort this year, who Tom was part of this cohort. And of that cohort, the 10 startups that came through, 4 of them have gone on to receive follow-on funding, which was sort of one of the big tests, right? The program is designed to help people access follow-on funding and capital, or get to market quickly. And that's only 4 months since program end. So really, really chuffed with that. Most of them are still building or are building new things based on feedback on the program, which, if anything, is like an even better marker of success, right? That they have pivoted, changed, adapted based on all that feedback, as we said, and are still building things in the dementia space. So all really good markers of success. The sort of alongside co-creation, the other things that sort of pillars of the program that we talk about quite a lot are about like general community, which I suppose you sort of picked up there when you're talking about expertise. We have access to the Innovation Collective, which are a network of experts who give their time pro bono because of the cause, but have really, really diverse insights. And they give a lot of time as well. So that could be people, lots of academics, patent attorneys, people who have lots of expertise building products, manufacturing, all sorts of different things, clinical expertise as well. So there's access to a big pool of experts. And then there's also access to a slightly smaller pool of innovators, people who have been there, done it, are in the process of trying to do it. And I think more than anything, having someone who can sit in the trenches and say, yeah, don't worry, keep plugging, because today it might feel hard, but tomorrow you'll get a breakthrough and you'll feel fabulous. That like motivation and enthusiasm is more powerful than anything else often. And we try to be part of that community. So we try to hold people's hands and keep them motivated, because ultimately we want to see the sector and the ecosystem thrive. And then the other 2 bits, one you sort of touched on already, is about credibility. So we try to leverage the brand as much as we can to de-risk innovation, to sort of lend an umbrella, a shoulder of associated credibility to some of the
It's a
stuff that we
good
keep
shoulder as well. It's a very good shoulder.
And it's about establishing trust, right? It works 2 ways. It's about saying to the care community and the dementia ecosystem, you don't need to be worried about these new things coming through, or maybe you do, but actually this is how you differentiate the stuff to be worried about or the stuff not to be worried about. And, we can make sure that they've been through testing or, they've built things the right way. So there's a lot of us trying to, use credibility and establish trust to be able to, in general, push dementia innovation forward. And then the fourth sort of pillar, which is probably one of the most important, is around the commercials and capital. So we believe that the best route to large scale impact and change is through commercial venture. In Launchpad, we help people develop investable propositions. That's, have good go-to-market strategies, business plans, investor decks, narratives, all sorts of things that allow you to have the mechanics in the back end to get a product out there and get a product to lots of people and keep doing that sustainably over a concerted period of time, which is where you see really, really big, impact at scale. And then with our accelerator programs and other programs, we then also inject cash as well in order to try to fill some of the funding gaps and make sure the most impactful solutions are commercially viable and get to market and go on to scale as well.
Well, I think sort of going back to what you were saying about how all the four pillars link for a business in Launchpad or a startup in Launchpad. It's the ultimate validation piece of your business plan, of your idea. And I don't want to sort of keep talking about prepare for care, but you also mentioned people who are doing something different now because of the results and because of the feedback from going through the Launchpad program. We started off Launchpad as a B2B service, a business to business service, as a completely different market and under a different name. And it was because we went through Launchpad, we listened to the people who were going to use the product, we leveraged the connections that we got from the Innovation Collective and from the wider network within the Alzheimer's Society. And we realized that actually, to make the most impact for people who are living with Alzheimer's and dementia, we actually need to be prepare for care. And then a podcast comes on the side of that. But
Ta-da!
and so it's
Easy.
and it just helps everything, right? Everything about it was validating the idea, but then also moving towards the end goal of making life just that little bit easier for people who are living with dementia in the UK. So my top tip for anybody who wants to get involved in age tech is have a chat with the innovation team and get yourself on Launchpad or the accelerator if you're at that point in your business journey.
Yeah. Or if you're not, if you're just interested in pushing dementia innovation or, age tech forward, this is my plug, you can follow us at AS Innovation Team on LinkedIn. You can reach out to us at innovation at alzheimers.org.uk. Yeah, and come have a chat to us on the team, because we're doing quite a lot of work, alongside our programs to try to show that later life and dementia type problems are good business, to try to attract more investors and commercially minded people into the impact space and the later life space, and also doing quite a lot to show to care providers, consumers, that innovation is also good business and good care, right? So anybody interested in bridging the gap between the two and interested in collaborating, we're sort of all ears.
Well, plug away, and I'm sure we can attach the email address to the description of the video and wherever this gets posted. So moving on to the people living with dementia, and I won't take up too much more of your time, but have you got any top tips for people who are living with dementia about embracing innovation, or any new tech or new things that are out there that they should be aware of?
There's this company called Prepare for Care.
Oh, you're too kind. Anybody but this one.
I think sometimes, and this comes back to like, what is innovation? I think the word does a bit of a disservice sometimes. People see innovation, they see technology, they think, oh, there's these things, there's these gadgets I'm supposed to be using. And that you either get some people who are like, yes, love it all, I want everything. Or you get some people who just completely shut down and reject it all. All good innovation starts with a problem and a need, not with a solution. So saying, sort of shopping for things is not really the right way to go about it. The best way to go about it is to say, like, what is actually going to serve you? What problems do you have right now? And those might be solved by things which are not what you might consider to be dementia tech in the sector, right? So like good GPS is a godsend for people in terms of allowing them to stay independent, navigate well. That is really easy and affordable to do. And if you can, get good GPS on your phone, or, get into good patterns of using Google Maps in your car or whatever it might be, then that will, keep you active for a long time. Lots of it's about the processes for how you engage with something as well. So, having pinned places, your known places that you go to on your maps, having systems that you can say, and then you can use voice assist, right? So as your dementia progresses, you can say, I want to go to my daughter's house or whatever it might be, and it will pop up with the route. Those sorts of things. Sometimes it's not about thinking innovation and tech and then thinking, oh, what am I going to do with it? You see AI and you're like, oh, what am I going to do with it? Think about, okay, actually, what do I want to do in my day-to-day life? I want to make sure I can still get places, and I can get to the same places, and I know that I'm not going to get lost or get confused. Actually, there's lots of solutions that can allow you to do that and can then become more assistive as the dementia progresses. So there's some really easy solutions. I would say be open to different things. So sort of have a look. I'd also say if anything feels hard or difficult, that's the problem of the product, not you. I think this is another misconception. People think, oh, I just don't understand it. I can't do it. It's not for me. Whereas actually often it means that there's a problem with the product. Either it hasn't been designed well enough, or it's not usable enough, or it hasn't been configured in a way that helps you. What do you actually want to solve for you, for what you value in your life and the problems that you've got? And then if something feels hard, that's the product's fault, not yours. So don't let it knock your confidence. Go out, see if there's something else, ask somebody to help you, see if there's something else, but also see if there's a way that you can get that product to serve you better, because it is about solving your problem, right? And there's often ways that you can adapt existing products to make them easier. There's, lots of people won't use a smartphone, but actually you can, there's assistive layers on smartphones where you can get bigger buttons, you can change the screen contrast, you can like remove lots of things on laptops or tablets or all sorts of other devices. So, with some help, you can often configure products to make them easy. So that's the other thing. Yeah, make sure that the products are serving you. Make sure that if they feel hard, that doesn't put you off. You make the products less hard, right? Because they should be less hard. And I do also think that we're moving towards like things are getting easier and easier to use. As I said, you can do more and more with voice. So you don't need a screen or like fiddly fingers so much anymore. Lots of things you can, use an Amazon Alexa or something else. And I think that that's the direction of travel, that technology will be increasingly something that's invisible in the background and things will just happen the way that you want them without you having to think too hard about them. Or I hope that's the way it will go. That's what good design, I think, for me looks like. And then I would also encourage anybody thinking about what tech they want, but particularly like assistive tech for like living independently, it's never about one person and their needs. It's always about the people all of the relationships around that person, right? And we often hear dynamics where you have somebody who really wants to use something and somebody who doesn't, like within a family or within a caregiving relationship, for example. And that it's like not really serving the whole unit, because to live with, well, any chronic health condition, or I take that out. To be honest, just to live as like a human, we rely on other people. We all rely on other people all of the time. And to live well and to have products or solutions, tech that allows us to live well, it has to enable the relationships in our life as well. So there's lots of good products which, for example, they might serve somebody on their own if they're living on their own in their own home, but they don't allow someone's carers to be able to, both informal or formal carers, to be on the same page. There's other ones that are really, really good at that. So I think some of these decisions about how you set yourself up in order to allow you to live independently for as long as possible, they do have to be joint decisions, and that should be like a nice way of sharing with your loved ones, like how are we going to set this up where the families can feel at ease and can feel reassured and can help, often from a distance, and the person with dementia can feel empowered and safe and independent, and have their respect and privacy enabled, all of those things. It's always about relationships, and it's always about multiple people. So yeah, that's what I'd say to families of people looking to adopt new solutions.
I love that as an answer, because it was also, I was going to sign off with like a really nice bit about make sure you focus on the problem, and you've just done the sign off for me in 10 times more detail than I could have done. And I think that's a great place where we can call it there. We'll draw a line in the sand there. Innovation is not about the new shiny thing. It's not about getting what's just been released to market. It's about starting with the problem rather than starting with the new shiny object.
Yeah. I would say the only caveat to that is that, that is all very like individual consumer based, right? And we are seeing the other side, I suppose, of innovation is the stuff that's often coming through research or through, sort of the tech development that will enable an entirely different dementia pathway. So, the blood biomarker stuff that we're having that's coming through that will allow people to potentially have a blood test to be able to help diagnose, or AI is doing around the analysis of sort of scans and linking up big, big data sets to be able to identify people at risk, potentially get early screening, combining that with disease modifying treatments, all of that sort of stuff. That is techie, but is also super exciting, right? Because it's not just about living well with dementia, it's about beating dementia and ultimately curing dementia.
And that goes back to what we said at the start it feels like hope is closer than it's ever
Yeah.
been. And I think that's where we're gonna leave it, Ella.
And
But thank you very much for your time. We'll have our Christmas stollen, and maybe next time I see you, I'll bring one.